Hey, welcome to Dish It Out. We have a special episode for you today where we have Chef Chris Albrecht from Terra to prepare these wonderful short ribs with a creamy polenta and kale. Stick around, you're going to love it. Hi, welcome to another edition of Dish It Out. I'm Doug Fee, coordinator of hospitality programs here at our beautiful facilities at Mercer County Community College. And joining me today is our special guest, Chris Albrecht from Terra. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, you're a CIA grad.
My philosophy of cooking starts off with terrific, seasonal, local, ideally, ingredients. Once you have these terrific ingredients and they're fresh, we need to handle them in a way that allows them to really express themselves.
So what's on our menu today?
Today, we are going to prepare braised beef short ribs, creamy polenta, and Tuscan kale. You can see over here that I have some beef short ribs. You can see the intermuscular marbling or the fat content in the meat. You can see some silver skin on the top of the meat as well. This here is very tough and sinewy, and I'm going to want to cut that off before we go much further. So that's the first thing I'm going to do.
Something you cook all day long, and it doesn't matter. It's still going to be tough.
That's right. This is not going to get more tender over time. So you've paid a pretty good amount of money for this. You really only want to cut off the portion that you're not going to be able to make tender over time. So what I'm going to do is just very gently stick the knife underneath that silver skin and trim it off, leaving just the meat behind.
And that's something, by the way, you can learn here. We teach knife skills here at the Culinary Center at Mercer County Community College, as well as some basic cooking techniques.
You can't underestimate knife skills. In the kitchen, like anywhere else, there's a certain vocabulary and a certain understanding that you expect, people to be able to communicate with. So when we use terms like braising or trimming something, that we are communicating the same way is incredibly important.
Exactly.
Let's talk just for a second about where this piece of meat comes from. We said short ribs, very long bones that come off the rib, and as the center of the eye has bones on one side, the bones kind of curve around, and it's often referred to as the plate where this short rib is cut from. And essentially it refers to the breastplate of the beef. Because it comes from the rib area, if you look very closely on the back side of this, you'll notice some of the sinew that's left on the meat when it's trimmed at the butchering facility. So again, that's something else that if you can, you want to try and take off because it's not going to get tender.
Take off only what isn't needed.
That's right. And you'll notice that I'm not cutting off all the creamy fat that's here. This fat is going to melt away and help to enrich the dish over time. When you think about 24 hours of marinating and 8 hours of simmering, this is all going to just melt away and be very, very tender.
So what are we doing next, Chris?
Well, we're going to start to cook. I think that's a good thing to do since we are in a kitchen, right? We've got some carrots, onion, and celery set up here, and for most of you at home, carrots, onion, and celery are probably pretty basic ingredients. But I can tell you that as part of this dish, they're going to play an integral role. Very often, you mentioned knife cuts earlier, and we could talk for days about knife cuts, but I'm a stickler for knife cuts. I think that in general, when you're looking to cook vegetables, you want them to cook at the same rate. And when they're all cut kind of haphazard or in different shapes and sizes, well, they cook differently. So in this instance, it's probably not as important because they're going to be part of a marinade that's going to sit for 24 hours. But nonetheless, I don't want it to marinate in raw onion. I want it to marinate in sweet onion. So if I put tiny little pieces and big pieces, then the tiny little pieces will burn before the big pieces are cooked, and you don't get the same effect.
So we want our vegetables to be functional and look pretty.
That's right. So I'm just going to rough cut this onion here. I'm going to call it about a 3/4 of an inch dice. Do both of those like that. And I'm going to cut the carrots and the celery approximately the same size.
Knife skills are something that really take years to develop.
Right? I mean, that's That's 3/4 of an inch. You know, one of the best ways to develop your knife skills is to put a ruler on your cutting board.
Yes.
And because a ruler doesn't lie, you know, certainly your, you know, what you're using these cuts for dictates to a degree the size that you cut them. But again, you know, you're better off to try and cut things the same size so they cook evenly.
In fact, what we'll do here is we'll do a photocopy of the knife cuts and put it right next to the students while they're working. Say, okay, these onions are exactly the same size, aren't they? And well, that's why you're here. If they knew it all, they wouldn't need us, would they?
Well, you know, it's always fun to talk to people about cooking and about food in general, about where products come from, and in fact, been trying to reach out to even younger students, elementary school children in particular, about the importance of eating healthy. And you know, eating healthy, oh, you know, it sounds kind of like a tired, statement. But I think there's a point at which we can all agree on something, and that point is taste. If it doesn't taste good, doesn't matter how nutritious it is, you're probably not going to want to eat it. So, like, you know, this Tuscan kale, for example, this is something that is loaded with nutrients. You can tell just by the color; it's dark green. Generally speaking, the darker the green, the more nutrients the vegetables have. Mm-hmm. And in particular, leafy greens from New Jersey in the fall are at their peak. They grow well in the spring, but the fall, because of the cool nights and the warm days, leads them to have a sweetness and a richness that they just don't have in the spring.
So, and I even noticed on your website where actually it might have been a blog about you, where I saw a lot of school kids there with produce they actually grew at their school, and you're working with that. So
that's absolutely right.
It's one of those good community things that you guys are doing over there.
Well, absolutely, and you know, there's no better place to start than with kids, I would say. So I think we're probably ready to go over the stove. We're going to start by searing these, well, seasoning them, and then searing them off. Then I'm going to add some mirepoix to the pan and sweat that out. Add some wine, bring it up to a simmer. When it comes to a simmer, what's going to rise to the surface is all the impurities that may have come out of the meat or anything else that was in there. We'll want to skim those away and then pour that hot marinade over the hot meat and let that refrigerate for 24 hours.
Okay, let's do it.
So let's make our way to the stove. We are returning now with our short ribs that have marinated for about 24 hours in red wine. We know there's carrots, onions, celery. We know there's lots of aromatics in there. And you're going to see the color of these short ribs is a direct result of the red wine. If you take a good look at these, you can see the browning that has occurred on the top here on all the sides. But you can also see that the red wine has really changed the color of this meat. And that's you know, the confirmation that the red wine has seeped into the meat. So what we're going to do is take them out of the marinade. We're going to put them in a pan. And like we talked about earlier, you can see I did leave some fat on here. Like I said, that's all going to melt away during this cooking process. So we're going to use some of the marinade, about 1/3 of the red wine, some of the vegetables and the aromatics from the marinade as well. We're going to add our beef broth. Now for us, this is something that we make over a very long period of time. I mentioned it earlier. It takes about 12 hours for us to make our veal stock. We're adding that here.
It doesn't come out of a box at your place?
It doesn't come out of a box, nor does it come out of a can or any other vessel. It comes out of you know, it comes out of hard work, that's for sure. We're going to add a little bit of red wine vinegar. The vinegar is going to help to cut the richness of the fattiness of this dish. I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of vinegar. Now remember, this is going to simmer for about 6 or 8 hours, so all that vinegar, you're not going to taste the raw acidity or the raw red wine. What you're going to taste is the effect of that, and the effect is a balance of flavor between salty and sour and richness. So we can cover this now, and I think we have a handy piece of aluminum foil here.
Now this is going into a what temperature oven?
Well, you want this to be pretty active in terms of a braise. About 300 degrees in a regular still oven, or even 250 in a convection oven. When you think about this, water boils at 212 degrees. And if you put this in an oven at 400, well, you could achieve this rapid boiling. But what that's going to do is jostle the meat. It's going to take the proteins and disperse them throughout the sauce. and it's going to end up with a product that is cloudy, is muddy, really doesn't have as nice a texture as something that's more slowly braised.
Right.
Yes, it takes more time, but the end result is a sauce and a richness that you can really taste. So we can go ahead and put this in the oven. Very good. And in about 8 hours, we're going to stay overnight, right? You didn't have any plans for tonight, did you?
Well, now I don't have any wine. Huh?
I know, right? So we're going to let that slowly simmer for about 8 hours,
Okay.
and then come back and take it out.
Very good. It's time to put together the kale.
Yes. We have the luxury here in New Jersey of a very long growing season, longer than many people think. And one of the most terrific ingredients that comes out of the fall is Tuscan kale. One of the things about Tuscan kale is that it is dark green, which leads to believe it has lots of nutrients, which is definitely the case. Tuscan kale, in fact, kale in general, is often misunderstood because you can go out to your driveway and find kale growing. And not everybody wants to eat what comes off their driveway. At least
true.
I don't think so. But I think dandelions fall in that category. But that's a whole other subject. Anyway, Tuscan kale. This has a couple of different names. One name is Cavallonero. Another one is dinosaur kale. Another one is black kale. This is a green that's native to Italy. And it's been grown here in the United States. And it thrives very, very well in the New Jersey climate, in that there are moderately warm days and cool nights. And this time of year, it's particularly delicious. You could eat this raw, you can eat it sauteed, you can eat it cooked, but what we're going to do is incorporate this into the polenta. One of the most classic things in Italy is to serve polenta in the fall. And as long as you're serving polenta, you may as well put some greens in there, I think. Because A, greens alone, they're not everybody loves greens like I do. But the polenta is such a palate for anything like this. It could be spinach, it could be Tuscan kale, it could be Swiss chard, it could be collard greens, it could be any of these lovely leafy greens that are full of nutrients and flavor, really. That's the bottom line. So that's the Tuscan kale. We're going to come back to that in just a second. But what I wanted to touch upon was the carrots, onion, and celery that I have here again. As you recall, or if you recall, we started this marinade, yesterday,
Okay.
with carrots, onion, and celery. And so, those things have been cooked out. They've lost their fresh flavor. They still provide a background to the dish, but they're not the main players. What I want to do is reinforce that. I'm going to add some more carrots, onion, and celery to the dish, but purely as a garnish. So what I'm going to do is, again, just make a nice dice of red onion.
We're going with the same size slice here.
Same size. I think it's important to keep in mind that this is a rustic dish at heart. And, although I'm being fairly precise with the cuts, I think in general it's important to let the food be approachable, not be too assembled or too flamboyant. Let the food taste great first.
Right, right. So
I'm cutting these in a shape called paisan, which is approximately, it's slightly larger than that, but about 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch by about 1/8 of an inch. And as long as I make them the same size as the onions and the celery, more or less, it'll look kind of interesting on the plate. Plus, by cutting them all the same size, I'm ensuring that they're going to cook evenly.
Is this a dish you feature on your menu?
It is. Short ribs are very, very popular at Enoterra, as really all the braised items are. We take a great deal of pride in creating flavor over time, and a braise is probably the most single greatest way to do that. So nice and easily cut up here these celery, carrots, and onions. And what we're going to do is just pan roast these real fast to give us a garnish for the short ribs. As you recall, this is part of the marinade, so we're going to bring it back here at the end. One of the other things that we're going to do is talk about herbs real fast. This is thyme, and I mentioned that I enjoy fresh thyme. Now, one way to get thyme into your dish is simply put the whole sprig in there. Another way is to chop the thyme, right? Just kind of take your knife across it and chop it. And this happens to be a fairly delicate stem, so it's going to chop up just fine. But I find that this method, although it's good in some instances, for me isn't the best. When you think about a leaf of thyme or any herb, it has oils in it and it has moisture. And what I'd like to do is release that flavor in your mouth. So if I can just simply pick these thyme leaves off of here without chopping them, well then the whole experience is in your mouth. So what I've done ahead of time is I've picked some thyme so that I have just thyme leaves. There's some delicate little stems in there, but it's predominantly the leaves. And we're going to use that as the final garnish to the short ribs because, again, we started the entire recipe with the aromatic thyme, and we're going to finish it this way too. So there's 30 hours of time and 1 minute of time.
Very good. and that's paying attention to detail is one of the things that's just reflected throughout, not just this garnish, but throughout your menu.
That's right. You know, our food is not complicated. And if we were to rely on you know, the complicated nature of the food.
No lumps so far.
No lumps.
No lumps. We're looking good.
Good. If we were to rely on just the simply complicated nature of the food, you know, I think we might turn some guests off. So in this way, making it approachable and making it taste great first, I think we appeal to a much broader audience. Like I said earlier, everyone can agree when things taste good.
That's true.
Right?
What happens next?
Well, I wanted to just give you a couple of options here at this point. We've got the polenta, and it's almost ready. And we're going to add our Tuscan kale to the polenta.
Okay.
I happen to like cheese. Do you like cheese?
I love cheese.
What kind of cheese do you like?
You know, whatever my cardiologist says I can have, which is none of it, but I like it all.
All right. Fair enough. I've got some cheddar cheese here. This is a cloth-bound cheddar. You can actually see the cloth that has been bound around the outside of the cheese. And I have a piece of crema de bleu. This is a mixed milk blue cheese from Valley Shepherd Creamery here in New Jersey. This is also from Valley Shepherd Creamery. This is their Valley Shepherd Thunder. They produce a cheddar-like cheese that's really fantastic, and this is one of them. So when you have this polenta, this cornmeal, excuse me, it's an open palette.
Now, what do we have going on in this pan?
Right here, this is the mirepoix, the carrots, onion, and celery. We're lightly browning that. We're lightly browning the carrots, onion, and celery, getting the sweetness of the onion, the sweetness of the carrots, and this will be used as a garnish for the short ribs.
Okay, and that's just in a little bit of oil?
That's right.
Okay.
Turn that down so it cooks nice and slow. So we've got our polenta. I'm going to cut a little bit of this cheese because I like cheese in polenta, and I look for any excuse to incorporate cheese into my meal. And you know what? If we're talking about a nice, rich, you know, fall type item, for sure, this is one of those things. You know, I want to point out, however, that as much as we talked about braising being a technique where you can impart a lot of flavor, braising doesn't have to be limited to, you know, the cold months. You can braise vegetables, you can braise beans, you can braise all kinds of things that grow in the summertime or the springtime, and you know, utilize the same principles in the sense that braising will help you tenderize things and add some flavor through the course of the liquid. So if you have fennel, say, you know, fennel grows in the summer for sure. It's not particularly tender right away, but you can braise that, you know, maybe with lemon and rosemary. You get a nice acidic bite to that, you know, so you can develop some flavor. I'm going to take this cheese and I'm going to add it to the polenta.
I was hoping it was all going to go in there.
Oh yeah. We're going to stir that in a little bit.
You didn't chop that very fine.
You know, that's a good point. I wanted to let the cheese almost stick together. I think that when you eat cheese, particularly a cheese like this, the cheese itself is noteworthy enough. If it was just some, you know, plain old everyday cheese, I might be, inclined to grate it. But I liked the chunkiness of the cheese. All right, so let's see what we have in the oven here. I think we're in the last stages of this. Yes, we are. Here, let's bring this over to the stove, or over to the front. So what we've got here is our short ribs. After they have been braised for quite some time, they're nice and tender, and you can see this liquid that I'm pouring over the top is beginning to glaze the short ribs, really get a nice richness that you can't recreate without time. You can tell just by the way these react to the spoon here that they are soft, they are tender, and they're ready to fall apart. But as you notice, it hasn't fallen apart in the pan. That's because of the attention we paid to the temperature earlier on. A slower braise, a longer braise is going to make sure that the meat stays together and doesn't, blow apart in the oven.
Right, right.
All right, so I think we'll go 2 more minutes in the oven with this. If you'll grab the door. Get our polenta ready now. Our polenta has been simmering very slowly for the past, I would say, about 25 or 30 minutes. And you can plainly see that it's creamy. There's some chunks of cheese in there, not to be confused with chunks of polenta.
Yes.
And this is going to have a terrific flavor. At this point, I'm going to add a little extra virgin olive oil.
And what's this going to do for our dish?
The corn already has a richness to it. I want to play off that richness, but without being too in your face. You could add butter at this point, but there's enough richness and creaminess already in the corn that I think the olive oil does just fine. It's also going to add a complexity. When you think about olive oil, I think about olive oil really as a finishing ingredient, not as something to cook in. There's some instances where you could cook with it, but in general, I like to use it as a finishing ingredient. It only gets slightly warmed here because of the temperature of the polenta to begin with. But you can see this, you get that aroma, the olives just coming out. I just got that.
You can.
It's really fantastic.
You can see that creaminess really coming through now that you have that olive oil in there.
So we're going to add some Tuscan kale here. I'm going to chop this a little bit more than what we have right now.
The kale's great stuff. I've used it even if you're doing a vegetable pizza on top.
Yes, it's hearty. It's not going to blow apart in here. And that's one of the great things about it. It's going to keep its size. It's not going to deteriorate, break down. It will turn gray if you keep it in there too long. But we're going to put this in and we're going to serve it. That's the whole idea. We'll mix that in.
Well, that's good. After smelling this braised dish for the last 24 hours, I'm getting a little hungry.
I can imagine. Oh man, so nice and creamy. Cheddar cheese polenta.
Oh, it's looking good. It's looking good.
Right? All right. All we need now is a couple of plates, and we could probably get going. I don't know if you ever teach cooking through listening, but the sound of those vegetables just simmering in the back is sexy. All right, so I think the next step here is going to be to take our short ribs out of the oven.
I notice you're saying thank you. I always say there's always time to be polite in the kitchen. It's very hectic back there sometimes and a little stressful.
Absolutely.
There's always time to be polite.
So take a piece of short rib. We're going to go right in the middle here. Some of the natural, not really natural, but the juices from the braise, they're going to garnish this here. Then work off of there.
Well, it really does smell wonderful.
Well, 30 hours of your time, you can make wonderful things.
Well invested. Actually, I think it's a lot easier to just come over and order it off the menu, I think.
You know what? I like that. I like that idea. I think that's very handy. All right. So we have, we talked long and hard about the carrots, onion, and celery that this dish started off with. So we're going to finish it in the same way. Just some roasted carrots, onion, and celery. All right.
Great. So now I'll just have that visual
and then
together.
Last thing here, we have our thyme, which we said was part of the beginning of this dish, but it's also part of the end of the dish. Any good chef is going to finish this with a little bit of sea salt.
Okay.
And I'm no different in that sense. One last bit of pepper. After all, there was pepper in the dish. And I think I'm going to just use a couple of parsley leaves, and we're going to be there.
Finishing off there with a little more.
A little bit more of the extra virgin olive oil, yep.
Very good.
And then we have creamy polenta with Tuscan kale, braised short ribs, and dinner for two.
Outstanding. I want to thank my special guest, Chris Abrach from Inoterra. And if you'd like to try this wonderful dish, he'd be happy to make it for you, right?
That's right. Every day of the week.
Thanks for joining us here on Dish It Out. Join us at www.mccc.edu/HRIM. Come visit us or come to our Culinary Center and visit us. And thank you for visiting us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. And by the way, Inoterra, we have a website as well, www.inoterra.com. Thank you again.
You're unique. at Mercer County Community College. Over 60 majors to choose from. Discover your unique path and turn your passion into a career. Follow your unique path here at Mercer County Community College.
Hi, I'm Doug Fee, coordinator of the hospitality programs here at Mercer County Community College. And I'd like to invite you down to the Culinary Center where you can enjoy great facilities and expand your culinary horizon. You can do that in a number of ways. We offer many one-session and series classes on how to cook. Learn real authentic cuisine, such as international cuisine, from chefs who learn their trade there. So come see us, check us out at mccc.edu/HRIM and see all that we have to offer. You'll be glad you did, and I hope to see you there.
Welcome to another edition of Ask Frank. This one's hot off the presses, ladies and gentlemen. I got a question. It comes from Miss Gail Washington. And Gail asks, what do I do? What is this process that I hear about called brining? And I said, you mean whining? She says, no, brining. I said, oh, because I hear lots of students whining. But brining is a very wonderful process. Traditionally, it was used as a food preservation method. Nowadays, it's used mostly to add flavor and moisture to food. And a lot of times, it'll actually reduce the cooking time, believe it or not, Gail. So what I have here is poultry, wonderful during the Thanksgiving holidays, the Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa holidays that you're using poultry or meats. And basically, all a brine is water, salt, and sugar. So what I have here is a gallon of water, 1/2 cup of kosher salt, and 1/2 cup of regular granulated sugar. And again, you can use whatever proportions you want. This is just a basic marinade that we got off the internet. Works just fine. I typically don't measure the exact amounts in my brine, but I do put approximately equal amounts of kosher salt and sugar. Okay? And this is 1 gallon of water. So that's a good ratio. 1/2 cup kosher salt, 1/2 cup granulated sugar, and 1 gallon of water. Again, proportions can be whatever you'd like. And normally I would go ahead and whisk this up together and allow that water and sugar and salt to go ahead and form the brining solution. Okay, now I have here a whole duck. We're actually going to use this in one of our classes. So again, this will create a more flavorful and juicy product and also cut down the cooking time a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and place that duck right in here into this brining solution. Again, salt, kosher salt, sugar, and water. You can see it's not completely submerged at this point. So guess what? As soon as you're done watching me, I'm going to add a little more water, a little more salt and sugar. It's not an exact science. All it is a solution that will help create a much more flavorful, juicy, and tender, in this case duck, for Thanksgiving, holiday turkey. And I do strongly suggest, Gail, and everyone out there watching, you do want to go ahead and brine your bird. All right, so stop whining and start brining. And remember, don't ask your neighbor, ask Frank.